With 2018 quickly wrapping up, in this video, I want to take a look at the 10 highest rated PlayStation 4 games of 2018. Now, there are still a couple of games that have yet to be released, like Hitman 2, Fallout 76, Darksiders 3, so some of those games, if they do turn out to be really great and you're watching this video at a later date, those won't be mentioned. But we've already had some stellar games, but I want to go over the top 10 highest rated PS4 games, and again, these are scores strictly from Metacritic. Kicking things off at number 10, Dead Cells is sitting at an 88. Dead Cells was a game that had some fanfare over on PC, but it finally came out of early access, saw its full release, and it released on just about every platform, PlayStation 4 included. And it's a roguelite Metroidvania style game, and once you initially start playing the game, you're immediately captivated by the presentation, the slick visuals. It takes a little bit to open up, but once it does, it becomes a very addicting experience, and there's a reason why people have spent north of 40 hours with Dead Cells. It's just a really great roguelite title. In my personal opinion, I think the 88 might even be a little bit underrated. I would probably peg it around the 90 range, but still a very respectable score for a very good game. Next up, we have the recently released Tetris Effect that's sitting at an 89. This was a game that I was personally very excited for, a Tetris game of all things. Sure, I played my fair share of Tetris, but if you told me prior to 2018 that a Tetris game would be one of my more anticipated games of the year, I wouldn't have believed you. But then you see footage of Tetris Effect, you see the incredible presentation, you hear the awesome music. Tetsuya Mizugachi did a phenomenal job with the presentation of the game, and even if you're not a big fan of Tetris, I feel like Tetris Effect is a game that just on presentation alone is a game you can get into, and the Tetris fundamental gameplay is something engaging for just about anyone. Do bear in mind that the Metacritic scores for Tetris Effect were just recently posted. It's still fluctuating a little bit, so it could end up being a little bit higher or a little bit lower, so just keep that in mind. But I think that 89 does speak volumes about the quality of Tetris Effect. Next up, we have AlBoy, which is also at an 89. AlBoy was a game that was released on PC a few years ago, but it finally made its way over to the PlayStation 4 earlier this year. And it's a game that released to not a lot of fanfare on PC or PlayStation 4. Not a lot of people know about AlBoy, but it's a vertical platform adventure set in the sky. You play as Otis, one of the last of the owls, a renowned race that has produced many of the world's greatest wonders. If you're a fan of platformers, AlBoy is a very well-crafted one. I can't say it's the best one of the year because there have been some tremendous platformers this year, but it's a damn good one, and that 89 shows. Next up, we have a PlayStation VR exclusive title in Astrobot Rescue Mission. It is at a 90. Astrobot Rescue Mission is the first PlayStation VR title to get that coveted 90, and once you hit 90 on Metacritic, that's when you know that our game is really excellent. And leading into the release of Astrobot Rescue Mission, you were hearing rumblings that this was going to be the defining game for PlayStation VR, and I thought that was a little bit hyperbolic going in. I was like, Astrobot Rescue Mission looks like a quality game, but it does look like a lesser tier charming platformer, but boy was I wrong. Astrobot Rescue Mission released, and it is an incredible platformer. Design-wise, it's top-notch, and what's great about this game is that it was designed with PlayStation VR in mind. It's not a game where VR was just tacked on. The fundamental platforming game design is incredible, and then VR only complements that experience, so you get the excellent platformer, and then VR enhances it even more. This is how PlayStation VR games and VR games in general should be done. VR should be a complementary attachment to a game, and I think with Astrobot Rescue Mission, they get that absolutely right, and it deserves that 90. Next up, we have Monster Hunter World, which is also sitting at a 90. Heading into 2018, Monster Hunter World was easily one of the most anticipated games of the year. It was the first time that Monster Hunter was making a foray into current-gen platforms. Usually, Monster Hunter would be relegated to portable platforms or Nintendo consoles, but with Monster Hunter World, from a technical standpoint, the shackles really came off with it coming to the PlayStation 4, and it shows visually and technically. Gameplay-wise, they did make it a little bit more accessible to newcomers to Monster Hunter, because there was a lot of newcomers to the franchise with MH World. This was definitely a game that targeted a larger audience than the niche audience that Monster Hunter typically attracts, but you still have a high level of depth to work with. It's also a game that's absolutely packed with content, and at this point you can get it relatively cheap. Next up, another platformer comes on the list with a very high score, and that is Celeste, sitting at a 91. Celeste is a 2D platformer that I don't think many people saw coming, much like Astrobot Rescue Mission, but even to a larger extent with Celeste. It's a very challenging game, so if you don't like challenging games, maybe stay away from this one, but if you like old school challenging platformers, Celeste is going to be right up your alley. And from its solid controls, great level designs, and visuals that definitely do cater towards someone that has played games on, say, the Super Nintendo, Celeste is a great platformer all around, and I think that 91 is well deserved. Moving on from that, we have one of the best remakes of all time in Shadow of the Colossus, and that is also sitting at a 91. Now, what was great about Shadow of the Colossus on the PlayStation 4 was that this was not your typical HD remastering. We already saw that with Shadow of the Colossus on the PlayStation 3 with the Team Eco collection. Rather, with this Shadow of the Colossus, Bluepoint Games took the PlayStation 2 game and rebuilt it ground up for the PlayStation 4, and that is magnificent because while that PS2 game was great, the real issue with Shadow of the Colossus on the PS2 was from a technical side. Now on the PlayStation 4, those shackles are completely off and the game looks incredible, even better if you're on the PlayStation 4 Pro. We're talking a solid frame rate and the visuals are even better than ever. And from a gameplay standpoint, it's Shadow of the Colossus the way you knew and love, with some refined controls if you do want a more modernized experience, but you can also stick to the original style, so it's got something for everyone. That 91 on Shadow of the Colossus is a foregone conclusion. We already knew the game was great and it's made even better on the PS4. Next up, we have what many are calling the best RPG of this generation, and that is Divinity Original Sin 2. It is at a 92. Yes, I know that many of you guys will be partial towards The Witcher 3, but I think Divinity Original Sin 2 is also a magnificent RPG. It's just one that I don't think as many PlayStation 4 owners are going to play compared to a Witcher 3. Definitely a more PC-centric RPG. The game was originally released first on PC, then it made its way over to the PlayStation 4 with the Definitive Edition, and the Definitive Edition was a significant improvement upon the original release with refined content, extra content included, and just overall a better game on top of what was already an absolutely incredible RPG. Again, a little bit of a learning curve if you're more used to consoleized RPGs, but a great experience nonetheless. Incredible storytelling with a lot of decisions, a lot of replayability. The gameplay is great, a little bit challenging at times, and once you actually get into the game, you'll realize that visually it is top-notch as well. Many would say that the 92 that Divinity Original Sin 2 has is even a little bit underrated, as some really consider it to be one of the best RPGs ever created. I'm not gonna get into that debate right now, but a 92 should speak for itself. It's a very, very good game.
Skill to turn invisible, then uses cloak and dagger to teleport while remaining hidden. She strikes the witch with a backstab, but it doesn't quite seal the deal. The ranger uses his nether swap skill to switch position with one of the lizards. A convenient ballista now lies within reach. She kills both of her enemies in one shot. Well played, Rogue.
Next up, number 2 is God of War at a 94. I think everybody was expecting God of War to be an incredible game, but Sony Santa Monica Studio did it right with this God of War title. Much different than God of War 3, of course. God of War takes place in Norse mythology, which was a very nice change of pace because while God of War 3 was a really good game, I think by the end of God of War 3, you really did all you could in that world, and now with this God of War, you have an older, more mature Kratos, you have Atreus in there as well, and they complement each other really well, and the dynamic between the two is one of the best parts of the game. Of course, from a visual standpoint, you can make an argument that this is the best looking PlayStation 4 game ever released. That's an argument and a debate you can have for a long time with all of the great looking games, but God of War does look incredible, especially on the Pro. The story was phenomenal, the fact that it did have additional content adding to the experience, because God of War games are generally pretty short when you look at the original 3 titles, but with this game it is a little bit more expansive, and the 94 is absolutely deserved.
Stay calm, boy. Say it.
You will be better.
The power of this weapon, any weapon, comes from here. But only when tempered by this.
And finally, number 1, coming as a shock to no one, Red Dead Redemption 2 is sitting at an incredible 97, among the highest rated games of all time. Much like God of War, we already knew that Red Dead Redemption 2 was going to be incredible, maybe even more so. People were expecting this to be a game that did rank in that 95 to 97 tier, and here we have it, it's at a 97, which is an astronomically high score. Remember that Metacritic aggregates all review scores and gives you the average. That means the average score was a 97, and even a score like an 80 would considerably take that score down, but it goes to show how high quality of a game it is. It truly is the pinnacle of open world game development. Is it perfect? From my experience, there are issues here and there, but the positives of Red Dead Redemption 2 greatly outweigh the negatives. There's so much to do, so much to get invested into, and we don't even have the online component yet, and that's gonna add a considerable more amount of content to the game. There's a reason why this game has sold 17 million copies. That's because people knew going in that the game was gonna be phenomenal, and it turned out to be phenomenal, and that 97 really goes to show how great the game is. And that's gonna conclude this video. Those are the 10 highest rated PlayStation 4 games of 2018. I do have to say so far, because there are a couple of other games still to come. Fallout 76, Darksiders 3, Just Cause 4 is another major title. But as of right now, these are the 10 highest rated games. That's gonna conclude this video. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.